You're listening to a podcast from The Word.
There's been a lot of talk about booing in the last week, and it struck me, I don't think I've ever really booed in anger. The only case I could think of, I used to love to go and see Humble Pie, Mark, back in the early 70s. I loved Humble Pie. Of course you did. I love the pie.
The pie. You can't knock the pie.
And on more than one, the Pie was just a great rock and roll group. And then, but it was spoiled on a few occasions by the fact that booked as the support were what somebody thought were a great rock and roll group, who were the Heavy Metal Kids.
Oh God, I remember them. Yeah,
and I hate
Gary Holton.
Gary Holton, yeah,
who looked exactly like Ronnie Wood. And they were. I saw them once. I can't remember where I saw them.
You couldn't get away from them. They're always there. They were always there. I think
Gary Holton was in a party that I was at in 1977. He copped off with one of my mates. I can remember. He looked just like Ronnie Wood. Really scrawny looking, devious character.
Anyway, there's no longer with us, is he? And subsequently became a TV star, Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he did.
But the point being that they used to really annoy the hell out of me when they came on before Humble Pie, and so I used to boo them audibly. You know, me and my mate Steve, we would boo them. We make no secret of our indignation. But
were you alone in that?
No, me and my mate Steve.
No, but there were other people booing as well.
Probably not a lot, really. You know, we just felt we were doing our bit for the pie.
For the pie, endorsing the pie.
Booing the support group. But have you ever really booed?
I've only booed. I think I've only ever booed. I booed Sham 69.
Oh, brave
and I feel terrible about that now because I think it was because I just didn't quite grasp what punk rock completely was. It was very, very early on. They were at the Music Machine. And I was just horrified by their just ineptitude and their total lack of what I would describe as any kind of musicality, which is an appalling thing to think. Because that's not the point of Sham 69. And it was only weeks later that I realised that actually they were really charismatic and quite interesting, just like I didn't like the noise they made. I think I was a bit kind of horrified by them. I booed 10cc when they came on at Nebworth because they were an hour late, and that was because, of course, they were delayed by the roadies cutting the cables and all that. Otherwise, no, I may have booed Colonel Bagshot when they appeared at the Reading Festival in 1971 because I remember thinking they were the most lumpen, awful, wretched rock and roll band. And I wanted to see the Ian Matthews Band playing Woodstock, and I wanted to see Rory Gallagher and various things, so I was impatient. But no, I don't think so, really. No, I just booing's...
Have you booed at sporting encounters? You wouldn't boo a national anthem, would you?
I wouldn't boo a national anthem, no. But funny enough, I'm not against people who do, because I think it's part of the whole thing that's happening right now, which is that people who've never been to a football match are watching football matches and starting to legislate about what's the right and proper way to behave. Whereas what they're actually doing is arriving midway in an in-joke, in something that they don't understand. Booing the national anthem is just part of, I think, reasonably good-natured destabilising of the other team. I don't think that's booing the nation. I think that's just the kind of wrong footing of the opposition. It's no different from QPR supporters, whenever we played Grimsby, singing "Sing when you're fishing, you only sing when you're fishing," and making gestures of fishing rods. It's just a way of annoying and winding people up. So I think it's just part of the rhythm of the way football works. I don't think I wouldn't do it, but I don't mind people doing it.
All right, okay.
Do you object to it?
I do, really. Yeah, I do. I think it's disrespectful. It's a pantomime of respect, that whole thing. It's built up with more and more of these rituals around games. But that just seems disrespectful to me. But
I find more irksome is how terrible our national anthem is. It seems outmoded and inappropriate.
As Billy Connolly famously years ago said, it ought to be replaced by the theme from The Archers.
That's good.
But because it's more peppy. And, it's faster.
But when you see a load of people bursting into "Allons enfants de la patrie,"
absolutely,
le jour de gloire est arrivé, you think, that's what we want.
Yeah,
we don't want to be saving our gracious queen.
Well, it's like the Six Nations every year. It's always when the Welsh play the French, it's the two great national anthems, and the rest of us all might as well go home, because all the other ones are all in varying degrees corny and tragic. Anyway, so that's booing dealt with. Did you see the story about Dua Lipa?
I did see that. Yeah, I did see that.
Pop sensation.
Now, as far as I can see, what happened, I think, was that a photograph of her queuing up at an airport in 2019, she then shared on her Instagram or her Twitter account, didn't she? Which has, without permission or authorization, say the agency who took it, to the 65 million, I think it is, followers that she has. And they are seeking $150,000 worth of compensation. And their reason for that is that they say that her Instagram and her Twitter are acting as marketing tools, and she's built that up in order to sell product. Well, Dave, to be honest, that everybody does that. That's the point. I mean, you have a Twitter account in order to say, partly because it's really good fun, you can communicate with everybody, but also you say, nearly everybody says, by the way, I have got something to sell. I've got a book out, or I've got a film, or I'm,
No, but I mean, but more if she's doing millions, that it's different. It's a different kind of. She'll be making a lot of money out of that. But what strikes me as really interesting is that it's like the old media complaining about the new media. That if photo agencies used to make money, they sent snappers out to take pictures of people unbidden. And I don't know what the copyright position of a picture taken in an airport is. Actually, is that public property? I don't know. Is that
I don't know.
Public access? I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, the convention is they've done it for years. They take pictures of celebs arriving Heathrow and so forth, and they sell them to newspapers or magazines or whatever, and thereby they make their money. Nowadays, there's hardly any market for that at all.
There's hardly any market for it, but also
you can't sell them to Instagram. That's the interesting thing. And so Dua Lipa sees the pictures, whoever does her socials, she won't do them at all, and thinks we're going to post that. And the agency really cross because they're not getting paid anymore. Because really, they'd like to be paid by the biggest, most powerful medium, which is Instagram. It's not the Sun.
Their market's dried up completely. Cool.
It's completely gone away.
But also, they're hoping that they can generate over £100,000 out of a picture of her at an airport. That's very unlikely. I mean, if it was a really valuable photograph, i.e. it was a portrait by somebody well known, or it was a picture that might possibly be on the cover of Time magazine, or it might be in a book, or it might be an experience, if it had some other dimension to it, then you can understand them being aggrieved. And a lot of those pictures do get stolen by people on Twitter. But this, I mean, how many times are you going to run a picture of somebody queuing in an airport? I mean,
But if you were her and somebody's taking your picture and you want to run it on your website, you run it on your website. You don't go to them and ask permission, do you?
No, not
strictly speaking, by the letter of copyright law, you probably ought to. But really, is she going to do that? Because they've only taken the picture of her because she's famous enough to have 20 million followers on Instagram or whatever. That's, the whole economy is turned on its head by that whole thing, It's going to be interesting to see.
Will she win that case, you think?
Well, there won't be a case, will there? Because nobody will want to engage a lawyer. They'll just be hoping that,
there'll be a settlement.
That some kind of settlement is reached. A few £100 finds its way this way or that. I can't believe it'll ever go to court. But watch this space.
The Word Podcast. Prime cuts of popular culture served fresh each week.
So did you see that somebody had posted the other day an account of which songs Bob Dylan had played the most live since, I think, the Never Ending Tour started, which would be about whatever it was, 81, 82. And how many times he's played them.
I've got it in front of me.
Oh, right. And how many times he played? It's absolutely amazing. And to put it in some kind of context, if you look at Paul McCartney, that I think since 1982, he has played Let It Be 680 times. The Stones, I think, have played Jumping Jack Flash 1,167 times. Brown Sugar, 1136. But Dylan, because he basically does virtually nothing else apart from play live, has played All Along the Watchtower, which is his most popular song.
Let's say it together. 2,200 268 times.
Now, I'm sorry, but I just had to get out the calculator. Now, let's assume it's about 7 minutes of time. Actually, it'd be more probably. That's 264 hours. That is 11 days of his life, 24 hours a day. So if he started playing All Along the Watchtower live with a band on Monday morning, he would finish 24 hours a day the Thursday of the next week. I mean, that is just, it gets across some idea of the manual labour and the grind, don't you think?
It's interesting. So it's just whizzed down these. All Along the Watchtower, Like a Rolling Stone, Highway 61, Tangled Up in Blue, Blowing in the Wind, Ballad of a Thin Man, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, It Ain't Me, Babe, Over to You.
Maggie's Farm, Things Have Changed. That's interesting. Things Have Changed quite recent, actually.
Yeah.
Rainy Day Women, he's played 963 times. Lovesick, again, quite recent. Mr. Tambourine Man, Summer Days.
Recent, isn't it?
Summer Days is 20 years old. Yeah, he recorded that, I think, in 1991.
Just yesterday.
20 years old, and he's done
1991, Mark, let's remind you, is 30 years ago.
Oh, it's 30 years. Sorry, it's 30 years.
Go on.
Sorry, we're 10 years out. Masters Award, Just Like a Woman, Simple Twist of Fate. And then we go ahead. It's all right, Mara.
I was amazed
772 times.
I was amazed that was there, actually, because I always thought of that as a very long song. Stuck Inside a Mobile and then Thunder on the Mountain. So there are quite a few from sort of relatively recent records. I tell you what, so it struck me. Two omissions. I don't know if these are further down the list, but we just can't see them. Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Oh, right, yeah. Forever Young, too, I thought.
Well, that's exactly the other one I was going to say, Forever Young. You know, they're kind of the classic staples, aren't they? You know,
they are.
You know, I don't know if you went and looked on Spotify and saw what his most streamed things were, they might well include some of those things. But does he never do those?
Well, I guess he must do, but they're just he hasn't done them thousands of times.
I suppose. So.
I guess he must, but I mean, I just think it's extraordinary. The idea that that was a good day's work, wasn't it? The day he wrote All Along the Watchtower. You know, the idea that he can play it 2,268 times in his life and will carry on doing so is absolutely astonishing.
Yeah.
And also, I get some sympathy with how hard it must be to feel excited about. But then again, when you see James Taylor or Paul McCartney or Paul Simon or something, they do look as though they're in the moment. They look as though they haven't fallen out of love with these songs. You know,
no.
You get the impression with him that he's just had it with them, that they're they're an albatross around his neck, and oh God, I've got to dig this out again. Anyway,
was it James Taylor sings? People who pay good money to hear Fire and Rain again and again.
That's right. It's a great line.
Listen, I started this thing a few weeks ago about when I got a new CD player that I started dusting off old CDs and taking them out on dates like they were like I was trying to revive the spark of romance with them, and I've continued to have success with this, Mark. And I want to know if you know these records as well. Yesterday I got this out. The Jayhawks, Tomorrow the Green Grass. Have you got that record?
I've got some Jayhawks. I think I've got that one. I love the Jayhawks.
Such a good record.
God, I last saw about 20 years ago. Fabulous.
That record came out in 1994. So how many years ago is that, Mark? It's a long time.
It's a long
Hollywood.
Now you know how reliable my maths is.
Yeah, absolutely. Hollywood Town Hall, which the record came out before them. And I think one of the things that makes them really good is they got two at the time. There was it Gary Lewis and Mark Olson. So they got two songwriters and two singers. And you really do get that kind of Hard Day's Night vibe off them, you know.
Yeah, they've got a different tone, like the DBs too. The Holsapple and Stamey, they've got a different tone to their vocals. And like the Fountains of Wayne too, two very distinct different singers.
Yeah. So I've enjoyed that enormously. I played it a few times yesterday. I tell you what, also, do you know it was that period in the late 60s, early 70s, where it was very common for bluesmen to be put in the studio with kind of their rock star fans.
Oh, yeah, it always be Bill Wyman and Eric Clapton. Everybody,
So the London Howlin' Wolf sessions, or
Yeah.
Muddy Waters with, I don't know, Nicky Hopkins and so forth. And very often those things just didn't work at all, I think. And I've heard loads of them, they all sound rather tired. Let me introduce you to the one record that is an absolute exception to that rule. And I don't know if you know this. Freddie King's record, Getting Ready. Do you know that? Okay, this comes out in 1971. Funny that. And it's produced by Leon Russell and Don Nixon. It's got Leon Russell's band on it.
Yeah.
You probably know this record because you probably heard it from Going Down, which is a bit of a staple still of kind of rock and blues radio. Freddie King, I think, was my favorite of the three Kings, BB, Albert.
Oh, it's fabulous. He wrote further on up.
Not really. No, I mean, it's Hideaway and things like that. All those nifty instrumentals that Eric Clapton made his name out of doing with John Mayall and Driving Sideways and things like that. They're all Freddie King tunes. He was largely an instrumentalist, but a really good singer as well. But boy, this record's good as a genuine rock and roll record. I'd hugely recommend it to anybody who likes anything in that particular neck of the woods. Freddie King, Getting Ready. Oh, what have you got?
I've just got to say, I was playing this yesterday. This is
Geraint Watkins.
Geraint Watkins, who I absolutely love. It's called In a Bad Mood.
Yes,
his titles for his records are so funny. Because if you're called Watkins, which is such kind of an un-rock and roll name, you either change it or you make a virtue out of how funny and how cumbersome it is. Because he had an album called Watkins Bold as Love. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And one called Dial W for Watkins, which I think is really funny. But he was great. He was Nick Lowe's keyboard player for a long time, and also Van Morrison's. I think he's absolutely wonderful. Really lovely. It's got a duet with Nick Lowe on it, and it's just he's so soulful, and it's got this crystalline production. And also it features the Hammond organ, and I'd forgotten, Dave, the Hammond organ. What a beautiful thing that is. What an organic sort of living, breathing sound.
Yeah.
I can remember seeing Steve Winwood once playing a little showcase and sitting right behind him, he was playing Hammond, and thinking how extraordinary it was to watch as a piece of kind of mechanical action. You play the chords with your left hand, you play the melody with your right hand. He was singing, obviously, as well. You're also opening up little tone controls. With your knees, you're operating different volume swells. And with your feet, you're playing the bass. Isn't that incredible? It's a beautiful, beautiful sound. That's a great record.
This is a junction in the Word podcast. It separates that bit from this next bit.
Well, we're delighted to be joined by old friend and colleague, and also our man at the football, Nige Tassell. Hello, Nige. You're right.
Hello, welcome.
If there's an intersection of music and football, I'm your man.
Yeah, there's the other man. And particularly this morning, now we're recording this first thing Sunday morning. The likelihood is a lot of people won't hear this until Monday or whatever. And so whatever is going to happen tonight will have happened by then. So we won't get into that kind of detail. Other than we're suffering the agonies of the damned right now. And Nige, I don't know if you're the same on this. We've just been arguing with Alex. Because Alex has kind of arrived at football about a week ago and thinks it's all rather exciting. And everybody else is going, no, this is pain. This is just... Are you feeling that, Nige?
Not too bad. We're a household that's divided between Wales and England.
Oh, right.
And the kids tend to... they kind of favour the underdog, so they tend to favour Wales at football anyway. So we're not... I'm not... There's no flags on my house, put it that way.
But if England lose, you're going to cause... There's going to be great happiness in one half of the house anyway, isn't there? So that's fine.
Yeah. My eldest has been... Every time he watches England, he goes and he's got an England top that he bought at Primark, and he wears that, but also goes, it'd be really funny if they lost. So he's quite simple.
I think what Dave and I are finding difficult is that a load of people who we suspect have probably never been to a football match are going on in the street about how exciting it is going to be tonight, and football isn't really exciting. It's pure agony, really, isn't it? From the moment the whistle blows to the moment the game's over.
And it should be, because otherwise you've got no investment in it. Emotionally.
Exactly.
It's just going on in the background, and it won't affect your mood for the next hour, 2 hours. It's okay. it's just a TV show that you've then switched off and gone and done something less interesting instead.
We were talking about the already famous picture of the Prime Minister and his wife watching the football. And she's got an expression on her face such as nobody ever had watching a football match, which is a smile of contentment.
Yes.
Nobody ever watched a football match with a smile on the face. They're either, racked with nerves or dancing around the room because it's all going their way. There's nothing in between, is there?
No. And also you don't watch a football match perched on the edge of an occasional table, which...
No. You don't.
No, you don't. There was an amazing interview with him. I've never heard such waffle. He talked about we showed a lot of character and a lot of passion and drive. He said I felt it could go wrong at any moment. And the piece at the time said, and it could have gone wrong. They could have asked him to explain the offside rule. This guy completely out of his depth.
I mean, when you've got Jacobs Rees-Mogg quoting the John Barnes rap from World in Motion in the House of Commons. There's something.
It's gone too far, really. It's gone bad. Anyway, what we wanted to talk about was the relationship between pop music, the songs that are taken up by crowds at football, and we've had an example of this in the last week or so with Neil Diamond's "Sweet Caroline" coming along. And how does this happen? What's the history of this happening? Is this a genuine folk art? The way these things occur. What do you think, Nige?
It can be. I've looked at this, and there are several routes to where we get to a song being really cherished and taken to heart. Now, with "Sweet Caroline," anyone would think, this is an occurrence that's happened in the last week, 10 days, and it's this kind of grassroots momentum that this song has become this new unofficial anthem. The roots of "Sweet Caroline" being played at sporting events goes back to the late 90s of the Boston Red Sox. Right. And it was purely, and this is why we're here talking about it 25 years later, an employee of the Red Sox became a father to a daughter. They called her Caroline. So the next game, the guy who's operating the music plays a song in tribute, plays "Sweet Caroline." The Red Sox win. Oh, maybe this was a good luck thing. So it continues to be played. And since then, it's gathered the momentum because other visiting teams go, oh, that's good. God, isn't their crowd really up when they really together? And so other fans, other clubs, other sports will then take it on.
Oh, but wasn't there a really significant thing that happened that when the Boston Marathon happened, soon after that, the New York Yankees then played it as tribute, didn't they?
That's right.
And then I think Neil Diamond himself came to the Red Sox Fenway Park and performed it. And I think that got everyone aware that this
really cemented it.
Yeah.
And then, anyone who's been to an England one-day international in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years will know that they walk back to their cars with that song ringing in their heads because it's been sung at them and played at them umpteen times. So this notion of, but it's really interesting why it's been taken on suddenly by the football team, and it's purely because the other day after the Germany game, the guy pressing the play on the cassette deck, I like to think of it, was going to play Vindaloo, which has that na 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 na, which everyone joins in, but it's still very word heavy, the verses, and people couldn't really quote it. So I think he played safe. This will be a thing that gets the stadium together. Hit play on "Sweet Caroline" instead, and it's in danger, amazingly, of usurping even "Three Lions" as the kind of unofficial anthem of the progress of the team.
Well, it's been adapted, hasn't it? It got all those, and then you got the so good after the kind of good times never seemed so good, which is brilliant. That's just been invented, isn't it?
It's kind of disappointing that he went for the safe option and didn't, bearing in mind so many clubs, so many national teams have used it since, that he went for the soft option. But that's a history of the DJs at the grounds playing it. We think about the most famous sporting adaptation of a pop song is obviously "You'll Never Walk Alone," and its roots are exactly the same. In the mid-'60s at Anfield, they used to play the top 10 records before a game in reverse order from 10 down to 1. Now, for the 4 weeks that "You'll Never Walk Alone" was number 1 in 1963, obviously that meant that was the last song played before they came on. It being a Liverpool band, people had a special affection for that, sang along, and then it was used ever since. And so But then with that, it's really interesting because that's not just the fan song. The club has kind of taken it. So in 1965, the FA Cup final against Leeds, on the eve of that, Bill Shankly is on Desert Island Discs. His final song is You'll Never Walk Alone. The next day, Kenneth Wolstenholme, when he hears it sung at Wembley as he's commentating, calls it Liverpool's signature tune.
Oh,
and thereon, it's just absolutely crystallised as the song, you know.
So going back to my question, it's not a kind of bottom-up thing, really, is it? It's a kind of top-down thing that is taken up by people. Is that fair to say?
I think it's a split. I think it's that, but there's also examples. Well, certainly we've got DJs playing, but we've also got social media can play a part in particular circumstances. Now, the Scotland team, you would have seen, have taken on Yes Sir, I Can Boogie as their unofficial song. And you think, I mean, all these songs have no relation to the country, the team, or even necessarily the sentiment. Because you don't want a footballer boogieing whilst he's supposed to be playing football. But that the roots of that is that there's a Scottish player, Aberdeen player, Constantine, who on his stag do dressed up in drag and sang this, and the video got posted on social media. So then Scotland, on their qualification game against Serbia, are filmed in the dressing room singing it. He's part of the squad, and they're singing it. That then goes viral. And now it becomes a fans thing. So there's a grassroots thing, and the same in the way with Will Griggs on Fire, which was huge sort of 5-6 years ago, when all it was a Wigan fan adapted Freed by Desire by Gala, put lyrics to it, which saluted his favourite forward, Will Grigg. It's not a masterpiece of literature. He's no Betjeman, you know. He doesn't really know meter and rhyme too well. But it was just this guy sitting in front of his laptop, as I'm doing now, in his house, just belting these lyrics. That went on 4.5 million views later, you know. And then when Will Grigg gets called up by the Northern Ireland squad to play in the 2016 Euros, you've got Northern Irish fans right across Europe.
Yeah.
Just you know, in bars singing it. Will Griggs on fire. Your defence is terrified. Will Griggs on fire. And it's just that, but also it's got that element of na 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 na. So it's got that little sing along. Yeah. You don't have to know the words aspect to it too.
Yeah. So I was thinking this the other night when Three Lions and so forth. There was loads of people singing it at Wembley. Presumably they're getting the PRS from this, aren't they? Because this is being broadcast to hundreds, scores of millions of people, isn't it? You know, it's still a huge earner, isn't it? That kind
you must
of thing.
get the PRS if the stadium play it, like Seven Nation Army. They play the riff, don't they, when a goal is scored. So obviously that's a performance. But if the crowd are just singing it and there's not a backing track, as it were, playing, do you think
it's still a song? You're still. So it's a performance of the song, not the record. The song. So they'll get the publishing. There'll be some kind of PRS.
There's some lovely shots of Skinner and Baddiel, you know, singing their own song at Wembley the other night, and they must be feeling fantastic. There's coins tipping into their pocket.
Well, imagine if you are a member of, and let's call it bluntly, one-hit wonders, the Fratellis. You know, you're never having to work again. When you see, it probably takes 2 people to carry the check into your house. Because it's so big, it gets played after every try at every rugby match. It seems to, you know. Really? Chelsea Dagger, you know.
So Three Lions. Obviously, as I say, we don't know the result of tonight. If England won, surely that song then has to be retired, because the great thing about that song was it's about failure. It's about the celebration of not making it at all.
It's sort of decades of hurt. Exactly. Yes. No. So it may be retired, but obviously there's a long history of songs being misunderstood and that not affecting their popularity. So, you know, it's still got that chorus, 3 lines on our shirt, you know, so people will still, you know, that will still be a song.
I suppose so.
But it's very interesting how, as it looks like, you know, as the team gets better, makes it to the first final in 55 years, that the song about failure is being usurped by this celebratory sing-along song, which has nothing to do with football whatsoever. You know, it's about It's John F. Kennedy's daughter, isn't
Yes.
it? It's about.
Yeah. What-
So there's absolutely no relation, but just because of the joy and good tidings and happiness it endows.
So, what's your personal favourite music football crossover?
Well, we're talking about how it's top down. I love the songs that show the humour of the terraces, and so songs that have adapted lyrics. So we have Let's Go West, easily adaptable. So, one for you, Dave, stand up. If you're a Tottenham fan, stand up, which is a nice, easy way. Your team only has to be 2 syllables, so it's one size fits all. Brighton, Palace, Brentford, Arsenal, it'll all fit it, so that's fine. Yeah. We have Mrs. Robinson, which is a bit trickier because you need to put in a footballer who's got a 5-syllable name. So here's
Eric Cantona or something, isn't it?
Yeah, Eric Cantona. Which I've worked it out. There's 3 players it can work with the England squad currently. So Trippier, Saka, and Henderson. So here's to you, Jordan Henderson.
Oh right,
yeah. So, but I've also watched this in action, and this is one of the best being at a football match, but nothing to do with the football itself, experiences I've had. When I was researching one of my previous books, I went on the road with Tranmere fans, and it was a game at Forest Green Rovers, who were famously the world's first non-meat, non-dairy, non-eggs club.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the wit of the Tranmere fans, all the tension had gone out. They were 2-0 up early on. Really, the result wasn't in any danger. So they started having a big sing-along. And not only were they singing along, just having a sing-song, I remember singing Erasure's Respect. I was waiting for the adaptation in the lyrics. There was no adaptation. They were just having a good sing-song. Why Erasure? No idea. Also, just can't get enough. Obviously, big fans of Vince Clarke. But because of the vegan nature of the club, the wags on the terraces then started adapting songs. So we had The Referees are Vegan. Okay, yeah. Town full of vegans, you're just a town full of vegans. Okay, yeah. But the best one, and I won't sing it, but imagine it to the tune of When the Saints Go Marching In. And because they'd never played each other, this is Tranmere's first time in non-league in 92 years. Forest Green yet to be a football league club, so never played. So it was definitely made up on the hoof, and there's a pun there actually.
Yeah.
Oh, Birkenhead is full of beef. Oh, Birkenhead is full of beef. It's full of beef, beef, and more beef. Oh, Birkenhead is full of beef. Fantastic. So I love
that just catches on. It's so exciting.
Exactly. I know. So every time they would then subsequently play at Forest Green, they had a ready supply of songs. I've been fortunate. I've got a new book coming out, and I've been fortunate for the last season being able to get into dozens of matches just on the pretense of writing this book. And one game I took our friend Ian McMillan to go and see his precious Barnsley.
Oh right, of course.
We managed to get him into the press box, and he was telling me. We were talking about the lack of crowds and everything like this. And of course, he was the poet in residence at Barnsley for a number of years, and it was always his ambition to get the crowd singing one of his poems as a chant. So he'd write a very simplistic poem that he'd put in the Barnsley Chronicle, and it was in honour of their new German keeper, who was called Lars Lees. I'm just trying to quote Ian, because I don't want to get it word for word. So he put this poem in the paper. Lars Lees, tall as the trees that grow in Wombwell Wood. Lars Lees, listen please, we think you're very good. Not one of Ian's most sophisticated efforts, but anyway,
picked up.
Then he's at the match a couple of weeks later, and he hears some lads singing it. And I've arrived.
Yeah,
this is fantastic. I've written a song that they're going to sing. With Ian, of course, there's a punchline to the story, and in fact, the keeper's name was not pronounced Lars Lees; it was Lars Laser, thus rendering his lovely 6-line rhyme completely redundant. But there we are. But yes, the idea that you can come up, or even just adapt a song, and then it's taken on by the crowd, not just in that game, but in subsequent games. That's got to be a great thing.
I love that idea that there was QPR had a midfielder called Mark Bircham years ago, and I can remember him. He used to dye his hair blue and white in the QPR stripe. And on his pretty much second game, obviously the gang had sat in the pub and worked out that you could work out a version of "Can't Take My Eyes Off You," which is "We love you, Bircham, because you've got blue hair. We love you, Bircham, because you're everywhere. We love you, Bircham, because you're Rangers through and through." And that was within on his second game. It's just magic. The entire place picked it up.
That invention, it's really great, really great.
Yeah, it's sadly a thing that there has to be in decline because there's so many overseas players in the Premier League that you wouldn't hear. You're dealing in a different language. Whereas you do that kind of song, it's immediately apparent to the person you're singing it about, isn't it? Whereas it wouldn't necessarily be with loads of people. So, what's your latest book, Nige? Plug your book.
Oh, from my book. It's called The Hard Yards: A Season in the Championship, Football's Toughest League, which is me again still following that glory game Hunter Davis imprint of spending a season sort of immersing myself in football. So similar to my non-league book, The Bottom Corner, it's me spending the season going round, just finding out what life is like in the Championship, which is a fascinating league. Obviously, access was a bit of an issue this year, but we managed to get around it. So speaking to players, chairman, fans, there was a danger that, of course, the season would get cancelled mid-season, and therefore my book would get cancelled mid-book. Fortunately, that's been all right. But yes, that's out in August the 19th by Simon Schuster.
Well, nice to talk to you, Nige.
Thank you very much, guys.
And
enjoy tonight if you can.
I'm all right. I haven't got too much skin in the game. I mean, I really like this squad. This is what I wouldn't have cared in the days of Bex and Stevie G and JT, but I care a bit more. I think these lads, and with a sound manager, I'm more willing to will it to win.
Don't you find it extraordinary that there was a post, wasn't there? There was a message from the Queen to the team saying how much she approved of their deportment and their behaviour and everything. It's just I can't adjust the fact that these are footballers. And what footballers? They used to be in a dentist chair, didn't they, doing shots the night before? What's happened?
It's gone the way of rock and roll, hasn't it, dear?
It has. It has.
The Word Podcast. Fix yourself a drink and it's like being in the pub.
All right, any other business? We're joined by Alex Gold. You're right, Alex?
Hello, I'm excited.
You did again.
Which I've been told I'm not allowed to be.
You're not allowed to be excited.
He's excited about the football, which is a very kind of Johnny-come-lately attitude to have. You did a gig this weekend, didn't you, Alex?
I did a gig. Actual real gig. It was a wedding in Lincolnshire.
You played an indie wedding.
It was an indie wedding with indie songs only, wasn't it? So Razor Light, was it White Stripes?
So instead of Mustang Sally and Stand By Me and all that kind of stuff, there was Seven Nation Army, which is obviously a great romantic number. Take Me Out by Franz Ferdinand, Mr. Brightside, stone cold banger. Last Night by The Strokes, Chocolate by the 1975. Which is, after even my indie period. So I felt like a bit of a charlatan doing that. But it was great. It was absolutely brilliant. It was so good just to be playing again,
Good. And this was with a bunch of musicians you'd never met before until you just turned up.
Yeah, you just turn up. You don't rehearse. You just learn the records and you turn up. You never met the band before and you just go. It's bizarre when you think about it. But it made me think, whether in 20 years' time, weddings will be populated by songs by Stormzy.
Possibly.
Is that the way things are going? I don't know.
I don't know. A very interesting point. Can you do revival? Can you do hip hop revivals and rap revivals?
I'd say
because don't they depend on the person who did them in the first place? You can't kind of do a version of those things, can you? Or can you?
That's the thing. Hip hop and rap isn't traditionally covered, which is quite interesting.
It's too hard to do, I would have thought,
There are lots of words, that's the problem.
Lots of words. And
that's a really good point. Is there a covers band that does, Straight Outta Compton by NWA?
I want to know.
I can't imagine that there can be somehow.
We want to know.
Why would that be as good as playing the record?
If there was, I would go and see them, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's for a future week. I've asked people out there in Podland whether they have any agenda items they wish us to discuss. Simon Benson says, Tommy or Quadrophenia? I haven't listened to either of them in years. Alex, do you have a view on this? Tommy or Quadrophenia? You're right.
Quadrophenia, without a shadow of a doubt. It's got Love Reign Over Me, and that's it. That seals it for me.
So the answer, Simon, is Quadrophenia from the jury. It's as simple as that. John Parkin says wants to know our opinion on multi-disc reissues of classic albums. Nice idea, but after the initial excitement of unboxing and playing the bonus discs once, are they forever to remain on the shelf? What do you think?
The bonus disc meant to be just played once, isn't it? Really, isn't it? Just outtakes. I mean, how often would you play an outtake? You don't. It's just purely like looking at sketches for a masterpiece.
You see,
you don't stick them on your iPad. And,
I think this has nothing to do with music at all. I think this is all to do with something that has a very powerful hold on us, which is shopping. Because the beauty of a box set is the box.
Yeah.
Getting the wrapper off, and it's got a so-and-so, and it's got a so-and-so. That's 80% of the enjoyment, isn't it, really?
Imagine opening the upcoming All Things Must Pass box set by George Harrison, getting out the little miniature garden gnomes. I mean, that's exciting, isn't it?
That's what it's about.
That's the joy of it.
That's why the people post pictures, post clips of them unboxing things on YouTube, which is a whole great strand. Stuart Robbins says and points out that the Boo Radleys have reformed without their key songwriter. Is this the case? And he says, has this ever gone well? Well, I can think of one example, actually. And I don't know if you call it reforming, but Fleetwood Mac toured a year ago, 2 years ago, without Lindsey Buckingham, didn't they? And everybody appears to have got the money's worth out of that, because they replaced him with some very high grade, Neil Finn and Mike Campbell.
Yeah, the Pink Floyd's surely the classic example of that, isn't it? I mean, it's not, once they've written the songs, you've got the songs. You're playing the songs. The person who wrote them doesn't really matter.
Oh, there you go. Harsh word from Mark Ellen, but probably true. Okay, Ben says, watching the recent Robbie Robertson, the band documentary of BBC4, that band had 5 insanely talented musicians who also 2 had worthy solo careers. Can any other group of 5 members top that? So I was going to take issue with this, Ben.
Yes, surely.
Because they didn't all have really good solo careers, did they? I mean, that's the interesting thing about the band, is none of them had particularly successful solo careers, did they? Because they all needed the group, didn't they? And that
they didn't. Rick Danko's didn't work at all, did it? I don't think.
Liam and Hell kind of made a few quite pleasant records. Did Rich Manuel ever make he must have.
I think he did. I don't remember.
But not in a big way. And even Robbie Robertson, he needed the rest of them, So I can't really think about it. But although somebody, Poppies from a Tray, points out that Genesis have all had loads of solo records, which are by their own lights kind of successful. We were talking to somebody in a birthday podcast, weren't we, this week, who had happened upon Genesis quite early on and had followed them through via all their solo records, and he was saying they're all quite good, which I'm sure they probably are, but there aren't that many groups that applies.
Yes, put out solo albums, didn't they? They did too badly. I mean, I don't know. Chris Squire did that.
Chris Squire's Fish Out of Water.
Fish Out of Water.
That's
right. Yeah.
And John Anderson's Elias of Sonhillo. Who could forget? But I don't think any of them did as well as Rick Wakeman. Rick Wakeman did. What else?
Well, we interviewed the great columnist Ian Leslie the other day, didn't we, for a word?
Oh yes, yeah.
And he had this wonderful philosophy that pretension is a force for the good. Yes. So I will now forgive Anderson for that album title.
Absolutely. Phil Turner. Just mentions that. I don't know. Did you ever meet Jonathan Coleman, Mark? Did you see that Jonathan Coleman had died in Australia?
No, I didn't know.
Jonathan Coleman, John O. He used to broadcast in the UK. He worked for Virgin over here. I met him at dinner. I sat next to him at dinner. A really nice guy. Sadly died just the other day in Australia, and he used to work for Virgin. And this Phil Turner reading about his death, it reminded him of. Made him think about Virgin and Richard Branson's space project, which of course they're all
today, isn't it?
Is it today?
I think it's today. Yeah.
Oh God! Almighty.
9 days ahead of Elon Musk, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Oh God!
It's
Have
awful.
you ever met a normal human being who wanted to go to space? I haven't.
No,
Not over the age of 5.
I know it's the most pathetically self-interested thing. Is all he can talk about in interviews is how he's going to feel when he's on the edge of space, and and really the millions of pounds gone into this sensation
Really?
just for him.
I saw this
Go
thread
on.
on Twitter. Someone who worked for NASA was rebuking this sort of conspiracy theory that they're all racing to get into space so they can eventually take the upper echelons of the human race out there, to be safe or whatever.
Oh, is
And,
that it?
It's basically this guy was just saying, space is really uncomfortable. If they're racing to get up there, it's not to take humanity further. There is no way that even Richard Branson can make space feel better than it does living on Earth, because the whole thing is really uncomfortable, and even going to the toilet's like a 16-stage, half an hour long kind of rigmarole. And
It's every kind of previously undiscovered territory has that in common, doesn't it? Really, when you go there, it's really unpleasant. There are loads of things to kill you. That's basically how it works. So anyway, what the point Phil Turner was making is that Branson has had absolutely nothing to do with music for ages now. Well, I think the interesting thing about Branson is I don't think he ever had anything to do with music in the first place. He was interested. He started doing the mail order thing, which became Virgin Retail, which became Virgin Records, just because he was publishing student magazine.
But all the correct decisions he made, I think, were based on advice from other people, weren't they?
Simon Draper.
Sign Culture Club. Simon Draper, Sign Culture Club. Sign Sex Pistols was probably his idea. I can't remember, but I don't think he felt particularly passionately about it. He wasn't the one who felt passionate about Mike Oldfield.
I'm told he didn't even have a record player. He didn't have a record player back in the late 60s, at a time when anybody with long hair had a record player. He didn't. He had no interest in it at all. So, but he just retained that association with it.
Yeah.
What I can't get over about Virgin is that they've done all the Virgin brand has been attached to all sorts of things, most of which haven't worked, but it's still there. You know what I mean? Because normally it's the worst thing you can do is attach your brand to something that doesn't fly. But it does.
But 2 or 3 of them did, and we still remember that, don't we? Virgin Records, Virgin Atlantic. And those ads. The most brilliant thing he did was decide that he was going to use himself to promote Virgin as if it was a kind of little cottage industry. Yeah. Here I am with my aeroplane at a gas station, filling it up with petrol. That was a really clever idea, actually.
You know what I think? The key Richard Branson idea he had early on, which is wear pullovers. That's all he's done all throughout his career. Wear pullovers. So don't dress like everybody else. Wear pullovers. And
wear pullovers that look like your mum might have made them.
People think you're different.
And you're down home and ordinary.
Oh, whatever. So thank you very much for your agenda items. Have we got anything further to add this week? Next week, we've got our Word in the Park on the 17th. And you can still get tickets for that.
Yep.
We're delighted to see you. How do people get tickets? There's a link underneath this.
There's a link underneath this in the show notes, and you can also go to wiyelondon.com, and there is a ticket widget on the front page of the website.
So next time we record one of these, we'll be full of everything that went on there. And won't you be sorry if you missed it?
This podcast was brought to you by The Word.